Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Stop on the Road. I'm in Bristol, Tennessee, and I am excited to say the least because I'm going to be talking to someone about trains, and that someone is this young man. This is Ben Hauser. Ben, welcome to On the Road.
Thank you.
Now, I've got to get right into it and find out just how old you are.
I'm 14.
14 years old, and you're going to see some awesome trains as we continue the show. And first of all, how did you get interested in trains?
You know, when I was younger, I was into Thomas the Trains, and then my dad showed me a little of his stuff, and it went on from there.
Right. Okay. Now, Dad being Dennis Hauser, and by the way, we're at Village Drapery, and this is where the trains are, and it's upstairs in, I guess, a former showroom, but it's turned into a train room, and I wonder how you accomplished that. It's like, hey, Dad, Mom, I want to put up trains, get the showroom out.
Yeah. It's grown a lot, like a lot of tearing down and rebuilding again.
Yeah.
So this is the real format of what it used to be.
All right. Now, as you continue with your trains, obviously it's your own imagination, and you're limited to your own imagination. You've got stuff that James is going to show us in just a little while. You get stuff on your mind. How long does it take you to put it on the track, on the platform anyway?
If you're really into it, it'll take about a week.
About a week.
But some ideas can turn into a disaster, and you just got to get rid of it. It's,
all right.
It's over.
All right. Now you're into the HO scale.
Yes, HO.
Right. Okay. Where are you going? Walk back over here towards me. Okay. There you go. James is like, get it back over here. No, you're fine. Just aggravating you a little bit, but you're like some people that you know that it's that thing about it. But you're fine. And now when we get into seeing some of your trains. You've put some stuff together, and it's very interesting, one of them for sure, and that is the figure 8.
Yes.
And I want James to zoom in on that in just a moment, because you've got them where the engine crosses the crossover, and the trailing car
barely
misses about what, half an inch?
Yeah,
an inch?
It's very close.
That's very interesting. We'll see that in a moment. But now, you go to school.
Advanced Middle.
Advanced Middle. And I'm guessing, are you busy, obviously, with homework, classes, and so forth? Are you into any other extracurricular activities?
I'm in Boy Scouts, but...
Oh, good for you. Great.
That's,
what rank are you now?
I'm a second class.
Second class. Great.
Very...
Now, are you into well, every year downtown where they have the campfires? I forget what you call it, but...
yeah.
Anyway, all the scouts show up. You burn wood all night for a week or whatever. In the winter, too.
Yeah.
It's sort of cold, isn't it?
It's very cold. And then we do the Klondike.
Yeah, the Klondike. That's it.
It's very...
Okay. Well, now, in addition to that, do you have anything else, like you're into any sports?
No.
Just trains?
Just trains and Boy
Scouts.
Scouts. That's about it.
All right. Okay. Well, I want to move over to another section and let James zoom in on some of the trains, and we'll talk more about that, okay? All right. Ben, I mentioned that you're limited to your own imagination. You've got quite an imagination for your platform, as we're seeing now. Tell us about the mountain.
The mountain is one of Dad's ideas. I mean, it was part of his junk, and might as well throw it into a mountain. So we made it into a mountain out of a drawer. So it was very...
Now, as you were showing me when I was down here the other day setting it up to come and tape the show, this drawer actually serves as a storage drawer.
Yes.
For some of your parts, some of
Trains,
your tools or whatever. But the main thing that you see is the mountain.
Yes.
Now, you're very creative, like I said. Up here on the top, we see trees, and they came from?
Christmas trees.
Christmas tree,
All
right. All right. Now, what do you, for the most part, make the mountain out of? Is this like plaster Paris? Do you take paper bags, newspaper, or whatever?
It's fabric, like the material we use, and then we'll use like drywall to we'll cover the fabric with it.
Yeah.
And then you would build the frame first, and then you'd cover it up with it.
Right. Very creative, very much so. All right, now James is going to swing around and show the trains, and while he's showing the trains, let's talk about them.
All right.
And one in particular that I think he's zooming in on right now would be the figure 8. Now this is your idea. You put this together.
Yes.
But here's the thing. Watch how close the engine and the caboose come to hitting each other at the crossover. Right there.
It's pretty close.
That's I would guess, coupler to coupler, half an inch.
Yeah, coupler to coupler.
Yeah. All right.
At Village Drapery, you'll find what we're famous for, Carolina Country Ruffles, made in the USA. Are you looking for a bedspread? Try a Bates of Maine 100% cotton, made in America spread. Finally, if you can't find what you're looking for ready-made, try our fabric that's in stock. over 30,000 yards at $4.99 a yard. Village Discount Drapery, 215 Raytheon Road, Bristol, Tennessee.
Ben, I almost forgot, you also do some small race cars on your platform, at least in this area, mostly trains. But talk about this. Was this an early project before the trains, or just part of it afterwards?
This was in the middle of the project, what we were going for, like BMS, Bristol Motor Speedways, but we have Benjamin Motor Speedway.
There you go, BMS on it there. And but now, I think James, my cameraman, said that he had to sit like that when he was a youngster about 40 years ago. Yeah. So they're that old, huh?
Yeah, they're that old. Yeah.
All right. Well, you're incorporating a lot of motor vehicles anyway into your platform. But this is the area that I wanted us to meet or to get over to, and so James can show it a little bit better. Obviously, he's showing the train going through there. I like this going through a short tunnel, and then there's a longer tunnel. Yeah. And that short tunnel reminds me of the shortest tunnel in the world. From what I understand, it's like 8 feet long. And it's over in Scott County, Virginia. I think it's near Duffield. Anyway, it's the shortest tunnel that was ever made, if I'm correct on it. And let's go to the trains now. And we touched earlier about all of the, good catch, Dad. We were going to have a wreck. And we'll get to what I was talking about in just a second, because that's very neat too. Yeah. The churches, the village, that's what I wanted to show off, because over here, and James, I know I'm throwing you curves, on the left side over here, we've got, let's just walk a little bit closer to it. We've got the town, and it looks like we've got a bank. Back here's the fire department, post office, you've got a bus, you've got 18-wheelers, the whole 9 yards of a town, and that is very good, very creative. And I'll throw you another curve, James. Right behind all of that is a mountain, and right down the side of it, you've got a waterfall.
Yes, I do.
You've got water coming down the rocks. And I mean, this is just amazing. Now, we're talking about all of this happening. We're talking about them running. Now, there's got to be a control. How do you control all of this?
The main controls are up in the front. I mean, the controls have been a lot of different places, like where the mountain used to be. Used to be over on this mountain, but just switch them up. And
now, do you have, like, is it digital, or is this day and age in electronics, high def? How does it work? What are your controllers?
We have a DCC controller. It's different between DC because that's only it's DC. So, but you got DCC where you can operate 2 trains at 2 different speeds.
Well, my goodness. If I'm not mistaken, well, I know I'm not mistaken, because when I was over here the other day setting up the taping, you had 2 trains running behind each other, which was unheard of before, because one was either going to be too slow or the other one too fast or whatever. But you had it set with your, I guess,
my DC controller,
the DCC controller, where it came up and was just, just a few inches apart, but still running together. Now, that's very neat. When you get, and I'd asked you before, when you get an idea, just it's like sometimes, I'm guessing sometimes it just comes to you. Sometimes maybe you're out riding around and you see something out in the country or wherever you might be. And you say, I'm going home and I'm going to build that. You get a lot of ideas that way. We're on the road at Village Discount Drapery in Bristol, Tennessee. My guest is Ben Hauser, and we're looking at Ben's trains, and more trains. And the reason I'm here, of course, is I like trains. So my viewers know that. My family knows that. I drop a lot of hints at Christmas, birthdays. Anytime I do a gift, I drop hints about trains. And I noticed, might get James to take a shot of it and edit it in. But the thing that I'm into now, the G scale. Yes. And of course, G meaning garden. Yeah. And it started, I think it was created or started over in Germany or somewhere, of the idea of running trains outside in the garden, which came the G scale. And those are the bigger ones and more realistic. Now, these are realistic in their own right. The G scale to me is more realistic. And what I'm trying to say is I don't have the nerves to work with the little ones anymore.
It can be frustrating work with the smaller gauges like N scale. Yes. I can't work with N scale.
Those are about the size of your finger, right? Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, when I was over here, I think Dennis told me, your dad told me, that there's even one smaller than the N scale, the Z scale?
Z scale.
Which is even smaller. I mean, who in the world, well, somebody does because
Yeah.
they're making them. Because who in the world would work with that? But and I know that the creations that come from all of this, and at one point you had a house when I was over here that actually some smoke came out. But that's a timing thing, I think,
yeah, sometimes it'll work, sometimes.
And it's sort of like maybe we're in summer and you don't need it. That's why we don't see it.
Too hot.
Yeah, there you go. And then you also you have whistles. Some of the engines will run the whistles.
Yes.
And now over on the far end, James, if you'll shoot over on the mountain, we'll see one little guy by himself running over through there. Is this something that this is sort of like a test you're going to add to it eventually, or is this pretty much it, and that's all you're going to see now? That's a smaller guy there.
Yeah.
It's still HO though, isn't it?
Yeah, HO.
Yeah.
It could, it's just an experiment for right now. Like, I could go all out into it. Like,
sure.
Yeah.
Imagination comes in.
Yeah,
yeah. And I like on this end where the engine's going in right now into the mountain.
Yeah.
It looks like big, huge rocks there.
Yeah, rock
where you cut it out. Yeah, that's very good. Like I said, you're very creative. And now, is this something that you're going to keep on doing? Like right now, probably in your mind is, I'm going to do this forever. You're going to grow up someday, and is this going to be left to Dad to play with when he gets like 90?
I don't know.
About 10 years.
Yeah. I like to be an engineer, a train engineer.
Yeah, oh yes, that's right. You told me that.
Yeah. So going off to college, you probably won't be able to play with it much.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Well, here's something that you probably would need to do if Dad's not going to work with it. At least just cover it up real well.
Yeah.
Keep the dust off of it and preserve it so that when you do get back to it, it'll be here and ready. Now, aspirations, I'm glad you said going to college. I'm always glad to hear young people talk about going to college because it's very, very important to get that education. As far as engineer, any particular railroad in mind or just wherever it happens to be, you get hired once you get ready?
I like to work for Norfolk Southern because that's it here in Bristol.
Obviously, it's home, right?
And the trains are just awesome. I mean, they got heritage units now where that just blows you away.
Yeah, oh yeah, yes sir. I think you hear a whistle. Yeah. Obviously, we could talk about trains all day. I could anyway.
Yeah.
But I know that I was excited several years ago when one of the railroad historical associations were bringing the trains on the excursions from Roanoke. I think it went from Roanoke to Knoxville, and they brought the huge J611.
Yes.
And people who know trains know what I'm talking about, and that was a monster.
That was a monster.
I think just half of the cab of the engine would fit in his room, but and again, to me, a train is a train when it's pulled by a steam engine. But as things go, by the way of the dinosaur, that's progress as they call it. And so you got diesels. But they do okay in their own right. But I was really impressed with that J611, a huge steamer and big monster. I know that through the years, back in the old days, back in the day, as they say, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, when a lot of coal over in the coal fields, they used to bring in double headers, which would be two steam engines pulling long lines of coal trains. And then there was one, I don't know if it was ever in this area or worked in this area, but there was one that was called the Big Bertha, I think, and it was one huge monster. It was like 16 drivers on it.
Wow.
It was like a 4-16-4, and that was the biggest steam engine ever made, I think, in its time. The sad part about all of the steam engines now is most of them were cut up for scrap. Yeah,
that's sad.
And then melted down for steel beams, I guess. But thank goodness there's still a few old steam engines around. Okay, where are you going to go next with this? Stick with trains, or are you going to try to incorporate a little bit more modern automotive? When I say modern, obviously trains are modern, but like racetracks, you're going to do more tracks?
I'll probably stick with trains. Like you see, I'm running out of room to build more, so I have to go in the next room, I guess.
There you go. Oh, and there was one thing, James, I don't know if you can see it. To your right below the control board, there's a turntable, and there's a steam engine in front of it. And the reason I mentioned that is I grew up over in the coal fields over in Norton.
Yeah.
And over there it was the end of the line for the trains, and we had the interstate, the NNW. Back then it was Southern, well, it's Norfolk Southern now, Norfolk and Western, NNW, okay.
Yeah.
And the L&N. And they would come to Norton, and that would be the end of the line, even the passenger trains. And so these big, huge steam engines pulling them in there, they would go down on the end of the line and get on a turntable, turn around so they could go and connect and go back out. I sat for hours up on a hill just watching the turntable with those engines on it. It just amazed me.
That was
yeah. And so I think, you've got all of it that you could want as far as trying to show trains. You've got the turntable, you've got the switches. I was always impressed with switches. I've been doing a lot of talking. You gonna say anything?
Yeah, I mean, what you said, a lot of switches. I like stuff that moves. I mean, much into designing, but I like stuff that if it moves, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, there you go, sure. And I noticed, which I had and everybody should have on those sets, are the re-railers.
Yes.
Those are very important.
But yeah, it's like.
And I noticed you've got some working units where, I think, is yours dumping barrels? You got one that dumps barrels?
Yeah, it can.
It can, yeah. And so everything's in place, and James, I'm throwing you another curve. I just happened to see it. Over on the far end, there is a white mountain light, and up on the top of it, we've got snow-covered trees. I just saw that. And there's a train coming out of the mountain, out of the tunnel there. Now, I just saw that one. That is very neat. As a matter of fact, isn't that the Dale Earnhardt train?
Yeah,
it's the Dale
Earnhardt train.
Right. Steam engine anyway. I mean, a diesel
engine.
And,
yeah.
That mountain, and then just right below it, you see the farm. There's cattle out there, and I guess it was a sheep.
Sheep, cows.
There's a barn, and the big farmhouse. And I doubt James can see it because it's behind the farmhouse, the tractor. But this is very creative, is what I'm trying to point out. And I even just now noticed too, you got a passenger train over there, right below the big white mountain. Yeah, Amtrak. And so you've got it all. You've got it all together, very much so.
At Village Discount Drapery, you'll find what we're famous for, Carolina country ruffles, made in the USA. Are you looking for a bedspread? Try a Bates of Maine 100% cotton, made in America spread. Finally, if you can't find what you're looking for ready-made, try our fabric that's in stock, over 30,000 yards at $4.99 a yard. Village Discount Drapery, 215 Raytheon Road, Bristol, Tennessee.
Rover, Austin on the interception, drives, lays it up in the end.
These cards, I put, we have the pricing, of course, and that's...
Everybody for coming out tonight. Be safe going home.
In a particularly cold winter, blessed this winter.
Said Little Red Riding Hood, I'll be careful. Well, when Little Red...
All this open innovation is the bulk of the work that I was doing with the president.
Brawl behind me where the creek is.
It also has a different type of artery.
Famous Carter Fold in Hiltons, Virginia, and we welcome you to this mountain adventure.
It's always good to have a cameraman directing the show for you, because he pointed out that we needed to come over here where we are, so he can do a wide angle and show everything you've got, which is awesome. And as we were talking earlier, there's a possibility of a wreck sometimes.
Yeah.
And it depends on who's running the controls.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, about the depends.
Sometimes the big kids forget what they're doing.
Yeah.
All right. Now I touched on the carnival earlier, and of course James is showing wide angle, and we're just sort of going to do a recap of everything that we talked about. But I wanted the folks to see all that you. By the way, how long has it taken to get to this point with your layout? I mean, how many? About 5, 6 years?
Yeah, about 5 years.
4 or 5 years. Okay. And this is just adding gradually, maybe once a week, once a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever go out with the intention of looking for things to bring back and put on your platform, like rocks or tree limbs or stuff like that?
Yeah, like I hiked the Appalachian Trail one time, and I picked up this rock and said this would be cool for my layout.
Yeah.
So I threw it on and put it over there with my trains.
Now, you've got trains going in every direction.
Yes.
You've got trains going in tunnels. You've got trains coming out of tunnels. Now, I know there is so much to see here.
Yeah.
And there are things that I can see that we can't really comfortably zoom in on, but I noticed over in the corner there's the old train track signal.
Yes.
And when I grew up over in the coalfields, we didn't have the gates. We had the blinking lights for the signal when the train was coming. But when I moved over to the Bristol areas, when I started, I saw the gates. But it depends on where you are, and the excitement builds. Now, speaking of the excursions that I touched on earlier, have you ever been on an excursion?
Yeah, it was about last year. The 6:30 was supposed to pull us.
Okay.
But it didn't, so it broke down in Roanoke, I think it was.
Right.
So we had a heritage unit pull us.
Okay.
So that's the same thing, kind of.
Yeah.
But
I know that a lot of the railroad associations, they try to put excursions together. Some of them will do it with diesels, some with steam engines. But I noticed the one that came through not too long ago through Bristol area, they had a steam engine pulling it, but they had to have a diesel to help push.
Yeah.
It was on the back end, I think, maybe up front, but whatever gets the job done. Where were you able to find the Dale Earnhardt diesel? I mean,
my uncle bought it at a yard sale. So I don't know where he bought it, but he brought it to me. I'm like, hey, I can use it. So
yeah. So I'm guessing that those are good suppliers, yard sales, eBay, and then sometimes people will have trains that I guess they were kids and they just didn't want them anymore. And you can find out where they are.
to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say you've got, and it's just a guesstimate any time, you've probably got miles of wires under the platform.
Yeah.
and I guess it was fun lying under there, putting all the wires together, running them over to the controls. And things that always fascinated me about trains were the switches.
Yeah.
Amazing how you get a wheel and you see that wheel go and miss this one, but yet it runs over and connects. And then there's one, I'm sure you've got one somewhere, there's it's a crossover. It's called a frog, which it's an angle that the trains go over when they're going different trains, different lines, or something like that. But there's just so much, and very impressed. And I noticed that we see over near Duffield, and it's right in front of James with the camera. There's a big long bridge.
Yes.
And you remember that one over? That's the center train goes across it each year, and that's over in I think it's actually in Spears Ferry, and. There goes. That was good timing. James got the Dale Earnhardt going across it right as he zoomed down on it. How confusing is it with all these trains running, all these switches? It's all of what you get used to, I'm sure.
You get used to it for a while. Like if you change one thing, it'll take a week for me to figure out what, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. And again, in case you've just joined us on the road, we're in Bristol, Tennessee at Village Drapery, and we're at the home of Ben Hauser's Trains. And as you've been with us through the whole show, I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am, because I definitely like trains. And so I'm guessing, as I touched on earlier about gift time, do you drop a lot of hints?
I don't really have a lot of hints to give because I get them off somebody else. So.
Okay. And a lot of people by now probably know that one of the things they could get you would be some trains.
Yeah, every Christmas I'll ask for a new train, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
New engine, new Village, whatever. So, well, and as much as there is out there to add to a platform, people shouldn't have any problems finding you something. And even if you get something that you've already got, it doesn't hurt to have more of it.
Yeah, it don't hurt to have it.
Because anytime you go into a town, a village, whatever, you're going to have dozens of the same somewhere. And trains they're pretty much a train is a train is a train.
Yeah.
I'll get in trouble for saying that, I know. Because some people say, I beg your pardon, if it's not a steam engine, it's not a train.
Yeah.
But this is just so amazing. I'm really, really fascinated. And you're certainly to be commended on what you've put together here. With all that you're doing and get your education, like I said, going to class, in Boy Scouts. And Boy Scouts, I guess, takes a lot of your time, doesn't it? I mean, enough anyway.
Every Tuesday, then outings we would go to, and it's fun. I wish a lot of people would get into it. But.
Right, okay. And your rank again is?
I'm second class.
All right, well, good for you. Congratulations on that, and I always enjoy the follow-up on the Klondikes every year.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, I think we're getting close to the end of the show, and before we do run out of time, I want to go over and show this complicated control system. All right? Can we do that now?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Okay, as I mentioned, we're at the location where
controls.
You control it all.
Yeah.
Tell us about this, Ben.
Well, you got regular analog, what most people usually have, but then you have DC where you get into computer stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it can get kind of complicated with all the controls, and this can do a lot more than what I'm doing with it, so yeah.
Okay, and I want to hold this up one more time just for folks to see. I want people to see where trains have come to, where it controls anyway. And computer age, folks. Everything's got to be computerized now. So again, as we have to wrap this show up, I mean, sometimes I wish I had an hour to do a show when I got something like this. But Ben, I do want to thank you for letting us come by and visit you and just look over all of these fascinating trains. And I'll have to come back sometime when you've added more. Just stay in touch with me and say, hey, I've got almost double or whatever. And we'll do it again sometime. Is that a deal?
That's a deal.
All right. Again, thank you so much. We've enjoyed being here with you in your trains. And this is Ben Hauser, fine young man, great collection of trains. I thank you for being with me, and I'll be looking for you somewhere on my next stop on the road.